Welcome to another episode of All About That Reef.
On today's episode, we actually have a really cool guest with us, and he's one of those people that have just done so many different things. But one of the aspects that we wanted to focus on was ecotourism and sort of nature positive tourism, given that Sri Lanka is a country and we're so blessed with such great natural resources, but across all of the different tourism aspects that we see, from like marine tourism or even terrestrial tourism, wildlife tourism, we always tend to seem to like fall short in doing tourism in a way that is beneficial to the wildlife, beneficial to the communities, to the economy. So it really is like a really great opportunity for us to be able to talk to someone
who has experienced it in different countries and also worked with countries that do research when it comes to like tourism and human conflict
wildlife
with wildlife,
and also like someone who's like experienced it being done well and like being done in an ideal setting, but also someone who's experienced it being done wrong and has seen firsthand the impacts of like how like poorly managed tourism can have an impact on like animals and animal health. But so I think just like off the top of my head, thinking a little bit about like experiences of tourism, we've also already had a few discussions at previous episodes of like how, for example, like people always go and like touch the way turtles, or they try to like sit on the turtles, and how that's not something that they would do in like Yala with a leopard or like another animal, right? But also even looking at terrestrial conservation, how like maybe there's in Yala or like Min area, how there's always like overcrowding of like jeeps and like even the safaris. So it's really sad.
Everyone wants to take that one picture, but they don't understand that it's very temporary if you try to like have this conflict with this animal, and like this connection with this animal is more important than taking that picture.
And also that in having this experience and having these close encounters, like it is possible to have close encounters with animals. It is
if
possible,
right.
to have this sort of really amazing experience, but you just have to do it with certain like protocols in place and in a way that is not like a threat to that animal's like or the wildlife's health, right?
And also I think something we can bring up is because he's an award-winning photographer and filmmaker, and how he uses all these pictures to tell a story. I think we've spoken about this as well, but I think getting it from him would also be quite interesting, because it's after all like a picture that would tell 1,000 words. I mean, he could explain this picture to so many people in different ways, although it's just one still picture of like
and also like you said, like a lot of the sort of violations of like the code of conduct or like ethical wildlife watching and sort of wildlife tourism is to be able to take that picture, right? Or it's like influencers trying to get that perfect shot for like the Instagram or whatever. But like talking to him and like seeing some of the shots he's taken, you can see that it's possible to get those shots. It's possible to have amazing pictures. It's possible to like have this entire experience without having to be in violation of those like protocols. So it's really cool. And like the fact that he's an award-winning filmmaker, he's an award-winning documentary filmmaker, and also the fact that he works with local communities and across so many different countries to both promote like ecotourism but also like conservation and storytelling. So
and I always believe that like, I mean, it's not about the picture that you take, it's also the connection that you have with this animal, regardless of like whether you've taken this picture or not. Like you like having this witness it by your eyes, and like honestly having that connection and seeing an animal eye to eye, like that is a very different experience. You taking that picture and putting it on social media and getting a few likes. So I think he has a few interesting experiences like that, which will be really interesting to get his opinion on it as well, because it's very controversial in this day and age as well. But I think we should get the guest on the show now and
just have him share everything that he's experienced.
Let's do it.
Have you ever loved something so much you wanted to wear it? Capro Treasures is Sri Lanka's first dive and ocean brand that focuses on spreading love to life beneath our blue waves.
Today we have joining us Kaush, who is a wildlife conservation biologist and award-winning photographer and filmmaker.
Hi, Kaush.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Sri Lanka. And so our first question would be, what sparked your curiosity to study conservation and also with photography and filmmaking, how you started that? Tell us a bit about it.
To be honest, I've always had this passion and love for animals ever since I was young. My parents used to always be the ones taking me to zoos and farms and things like that. Wherever we can see wildlife, they would take me to them. So it was kind of like a natural progression, I guess. And at the same time, I always had a camera in my hand ever since I was young. I would be the one at like family events taking pictures of everyone. So I guess I just did the photography thing as a hobby for a long time. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I always knew I wanted to work with wildlife in the long run. And then I guess the first time I started putting it together was when I was doing my master's research in the Maldives. It involved documenting interactions between humans and whale sharks.
Okay.
So I just borrowed a small GoPro Hero 4 from my friend back home. It didn't even have a screen, and I just took it. And I spent a month in the Maldives documenting the sharks for my research. And when we weren't seeing any sharks, we would just be snorkeling or freediving on the reef. And so I just photograph or film anything that we saw there. And just my editing wasn't very good then, so I just was practicing. I finished my master's, and then the year after, the NGO that I worked for, they asked me to come back as a research assistant. So I went back for 3 months in 2019. Got a slightly better GoPro at that time, and again, every day for 3 months, just filming, taking photos in the water, and that's kind of how it started. Shortly after that, we hit COVID, so I had almost 2 years of just sitting on all this footage and all the images that I had, so I just kind of started learning editing and putting things together, and then it's just snowballed from there.
So we could say that your underwater photography journey started in Maldives?
Yeah, for sure.
And also, so your pictures have actually been recognized on a lot of like global platforms. And I think one of the things that I've seen that you said on like other sort of publications and stuff is that for you, you find that storytelling is more important than the gear you're using itself. So could you tell us a little bit about what good storytelling for conservation means to you?
Yeah, for sure. I think, like I said, nowadays I have slightly better kit and I'm able to do maybe more, but I started on just the GoPro for the first maybe 2 years of what I'm doing now. And so what I always tell people is there isn't any like perfect gear. It's just whatever you have to hand at the time is fine, just go and do that. But the most important thing is the storytelling. Like, you can have as many nice visuals as you want, but if the story doesn't resonate with people or doesn't kind of inspire people, then there's no real point in telling it almost. So I think you need to go out and find stories that make you feel something, and then if they make you feel something, there's definitely someone out there that it's going to invoke feelings in as well. And you just want to try and tell it to the best of your ability, but also by being true to the story as well.
Interesting.
That's really cool.
So you mentioned the whale shark research that you were doing in Maldives. Can you tell us a bit about what the whole research was and what exactly it entailed? Was it?
And if you have any cool findings from it as well.
Yeah. So I was working with a charity there in the Maldives called the Maldives Whale Shark Research Program, pretty on the head for what they do. And my specific master's research was on the impact that breaking code of conduct has on the whale sharks. So code of conduct means there's a set of regulations and rules for when you get in the water to swim with these sharks, like staying 3 meters away from the body of the shark, 4 meters from the tail, not touching it, no flash photography, etc., etc. And those regulations are in place for a reason, right? It protects the sharks, and at the end of the day, a happy shark means a happy encounter, like they're more likely to stick around. So I was studying what the reaction is in the shark when people break this code of conduct and kind of the knock-on effect that can have on their physiology in the long term. So it's no real surprise if you touch a whale shark, they don't like it and they swim away, right? So I need to go back and look over the statistics, but it's a very obvious statistic that when at least one of these code of conduct is broken, the encounter length is statistically short, like significantly shorter than if no one breaks any code of conduct. So sometimes you can just get in the water and the shark doesn't want to be there that day and it swims away and like no one did anything wrong, but at the end of the day it's just how the shark feels that day. But more often than not, if the shark is there, it's just hanging around cruising, they're thermoregulating most of the time. If you get in and everyone observes the code of conduct, they're pretty happy to just stick around. They're pretty oblivious to people most of the time, unless we get too close, kind of thing. And it's one of the only places in the world where you can see whale sharks all year round, and so this drives a really big pressure from tourism, because people just come from all over the world to try and get in and see these amazing animals, which is fair enough. But we also have to be respectful, right? And tourism kind of can save them in a way, but also if it goes too far and becomes detrimental to them, then it's going to go back to doing harm to these animals. So it really is like a fine balance.
Yeah. And not only, I think, does it do harm to the animals, but it does harm to the tourism industry itself, right? Which is then kind of self-destructive. And then in the future, it's just going to affect the communities and sort of livelihoods that depend on these whale shark tourism activities, right? It's actually really interesting that you brought it up, because I think in Sri Lanka, we also do face so many similar issues. I know that there was a similar study done on whales and like swim with whale tours by Oceans Well, but also something we've discussed before is even with the sea turtles, like you always see people going and sort of
Feeding
violating
them and,
any
like,
sort of
touching them.
basic etiquette by like feeding and like touching. So I think one of the things that you do that has sort of built up from the work that you do is you also take people on sort of expeditions, right, to have these sort of human wildlife encounters. So can you tell us a little bit about these expeditions and how you make sure that these expeditions are sort of, you know, like positive nature experiences and not in violation, and sort of also sort of nature positive?
Yeah, I mean, we try and be as ethical as possible on these expeditions. The whole point is you're going into the animal's habitat, right? So you want to not only damage the habitat, but you don't want to impact the wildlife as little as possible. There's always going to be a little bit of impact because we're going into the habitat, but you want to be as kind of ethical and thoughtful of the wildlife as possible. So one thing that I always do is any expedition that I run is I'll partner with a local NGO. So that might be in the way of kind of them coming and giving presentations to the guests before we get in the water during the week, kind of on what we might see, the biology behind some of the animals, and whatever conservation work they're doing in the area as well. And then also giving back to them. So like a portion of the profits will always go back to the NGO so they can continue with their work. And I think it's really important to give people those kinds of briefings and that kind of information before they go out into the water, or if it's on land, like to go see the animals, because if you're not like an ocean person or you're not like a wildlife person and this is the first time you're doing it, you don't understand like the behavior or what to look out for, what maybe the animal is showcasing that it's not happy and it's stressed, or what if it is happy, kind of thing. So giving them that before they actually go out into the wild and see it is really important, and I think that is something that is missing from a lot of kind of like typical tour operators. Like you can go to like a turtle snorkel or something like that, right? And you just turn up in the morning, you get on the boat, they're like, okay, like this is the boat, this is where it's going to be, let's go find some turtles. They don't teach you anything about like how close to get, what the turtle's eating, what it looks like when a turtle is stressed, anything like don't get too close to it when it comes up to breathe, because it needs to breathe, and if it dies away without taking enough air, then it has to come back up again with stress and things like that. So I think that kind of briefing and information that they give beforehand is super important, not only for the safety of like people, but also for the animals as well, and keeping them as stress-free as possible.
And so does it also include like nature interpretation, like to be able to sort of read a little bit of the animal's behavior? Because like, for example, like, oh, it's feeding now, it's mating now, and things like that, which I think also then just overall enhances the experience of the visitor itself, right? Because like if you're looking at a whale and you don't know what it's doing, then you're just looking at a whale. But then if you can know that the whale is mating or if it's feeding,
you learn a lot more.
You're learning a lot more,
sure.
and it's something different that you would notice.
It's the same as like, you know, if you have a dog or a cat, you understand like if the hairs on the back of a cat are standing up, it's not happy, so you don't go and then try and get closer or touch it, right? And it's the same kind of thing with any animal. So for example, like with a turtle, if it's you see it kind of deeper and it's coming up, it means it's coming up for a breath. When it's down in the water column, maybe you can get a little bit closer, but if it's coming up for a breath, like it has to breathe, otherwise it'll die, right? Yeah. And so if you get too close to it, it's going to be stressed out. It's not going to take as much air as it needs. It's going to dive down and swim away much faster, and that's going to impact how long it can stay down again later on. It's the same thing we see with the whale sharks, for example. When we see them at the surface, most of the time it's because they're thermoregulating, so they feed really deep in the water, maybe more than 2,000 meters into the ocean, right? Where it's very cold. So they're feeding in the cold water, and then they come to the shallow waters of the reef to thermoregulate, warm up, basically sunbathe, before going back down. What we see is that when they're disrupted and interrupted over and over again, when they're thermoregulating, it pushes them to go down before they're ready and before they have enough energy, which means they can't spend as much time feeding, which has a knock-on effect. When that happens over and over and over again, it means that they grow at a much smaller rate, which means that they reach sexual maturity later on. Like, it takes them longer to reach sexual maturity, which then means maybe they're not breeding as often or as quickly as maybe they should. So understanding that is, I think most people, whether they're ocean people, wildlife people or not, like, I think that'll help them understand better how to behave in the water. And most people, like, if they want to go and see wildlife, it's because they're passionate about it, they care for it, right? So if you tell them that advice beforehand, they'll, I would say more often than not, observe the rules. It's very rare that you tell someone that and they go, oh, no, I'm just going to go touch it anyway. Like, it's not to say it doesn't happen, but more often than not, they're more likely to observe the code of conduct if you explain it to them.
It's interesting that you brought this up, because like all you see on social media is like this Insta-worthy pic that they took of a whale shark or a turtle or something like that. But it's important that they know how to take it, or even like how to interact with these animals, because after all, it's their territory, and we are just going to take this picture or like interact with this animal in such close proximity. And like, I think I've seen like some of your like videos of you being really close to some blue whales, I think. No, not
grey whales.
Grey whales. To the point that you even like hugged one of them. I mean, they're very friendly. They're very close to like the boat as well. Tell us a bit about that experience, and did you get any like comments on like negative comments about it or anything like that?
It's the grey whales is very difficult to explain, even because when my whole master's thesis was essentially on why you shouldn't touch whale sharks, and then I go and then I'm scratching the nose of a grey whale. It's really hard to explain, but it's still very controversial, the whole grey whale thing. From my point of view as a scientist, as well as like a photographer and filmmaker, with for example, whale sharks, the difference is that it's never the whale sharks coming to us. We're always, whenever someone touches a whale shark, they're forcing themselves on the shark. Whale sharks are what we call non-tactile, so they don't like being touched at all. And we have countless numbers of videos, like even that I've filmed, when they get touched by tourists, they literally just like freak out and they swim away. And that's us forcing ourselves on the whale sharks, right? The grey whales is, and it's incredibly, like, until you go and like see it and do it yourself, it's almost impossible to explain, but there is nothing else like it in the entire world. It is in 3 or 4 select lagoons in Mexico that the grey whales, they migrate down from Alaska. It's one of the largest migrations in the world. They migrate down from Alaska, where they're feeding most of the year, and then they come to these lagoons in Mexico to mate and give birth. And it's like a natural curiosity, I guess, that they have of people, of whatever it might be, that if you go out into these shallow lagoons, you don't have to go far, you can see it from the shore, like all the exhales, all the blows. You can go out on these small boats and they show like a natural curiosity of us. So you'll see a few of these whales, they'll come close, they'll spy hop, hopping is when a whale sticks its head out the water and it's like just looking around, checking things out. They'll swim past with like their eyes looking at us, and then it just takes one to be like a little bit brave. It'll come like very close to the boat, and like if you splash the water a little bit, maybe it'll come a little bit closer, and you can just reach out a little bit. And sometimes they don't want it. They you can feel before something touches it, the hairs in your body can feel it. Sometimes they feel it and they don't want it. But sometimes like they're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, and then you can like give them a scratch, give them whatever. And once one gets this kind of attention and they like this sensation, they're like dogs. The others are like, oh, like what's going on over there? Let's go check it out. And then they all come over. And as like I've read all the literature on this, like there's no definitive answer as to why they do this. Like unless we speak whale, we can't figure out why. It's possible that so grey whales are the most tactile of all the whales, so they touch each other the most out of any other whales. You'll see them like moms and babies, like adults together, they'll rub on each other and stuff like that. So it's possible that because they like the touch anyway, this is why they come and get this from us. They carry a lot of parasites on them, and it's a way also like we can't pick barnacles off, but whales have lice, like the same kind of lice that people have in their hair, but like 10 times the size. They have these lice in between barnacles. We can pick those off, so there's a kind of parasite removal, I guess. Sometimes they'll come and they'll scratch their barnacles on the bottom of the boat. Like if you're an open water animal, there's nowhere else to do that, so this gives you a chance to do that. And they're completely safe in these bays. The only natural predator is orcas, and orcas can't get into these bays. So they're just like relaxed. They've got babies, they're mating, they're like slowly relaxed when they're here, and I guess their natural curiosity takes over. And it's really like, it's the perfect example of conservation. Like you stop hunting something and the population bounces back, because in those very same bays now where we can go and have like 20 whales around us all trying to get our attention, up until 60, 70 years ago, they were hunted almost to the brink of extinction in those very same bays. Like the water ran red with their blood. And these guys can live to probably 100 years old. So there are probably whales alive now that experienced that, but like have got over it, have forgiven us maybe. And now you can have the most
intimate,
intimate, mind-blowing encounters with these animals. They're sentient animals. They're coming to you. It's not us like forcing ourselves on them. If they don't want to go, if they don't want to be there, they just leave and we keep going. And even you get encounters where mums will bring the newborn baby to the boat, and it's a baby, so it doesn't really know what's going on, so it's a little bit hesitant. And the mum is like, nope, and it will go under the baby and push it up to the boat, like, here, touch my baby. It's like, that doesn't happen. Like, the equivalent would be if we went out into the bush and an elephant brought its baby to the bush. If you go down to the bush and try and touch an elephant, you're not coming back, let alone it bringing its baby to you. So, yeah, completely unique. As soon as they leave those bays and they go back to Alaska, they don't want anything to do with people. They stay in their area, they feed. As far as we know, they don't come near boats, anything like that. Only in these select bays, there's this learned behavior, which is totally unique and the only place in the world where I can kind of sanction touching animals, but it's because it's on their terms. But again, it's highly controversial. Some scientists would just say, don't ever touch wildlife, which is fair enough, each to their own. But I would always say, like, unless you go there and experience it for yourself, it's really difficult to understand just how amazing
I think
it is.
you won the award for this picture, right?
Yeah, I had an image reach the final round, or like be awarded honorable mention in the Ocean Photographer of the Year award this year, and it was from one of these.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. That's really, really good. It also sounds like such an incredible experience, and I guess this is a little bit off topic, but like, do you have any other sort of equivalent like wildlife experiences such as this that you have had while doing your photography or your research? Just also to show that like human wildlife interactions can be more than just sightseeing, and like I think the story with the whales is also really cool because there's a lot of studies that's been done on whales, like even I think the southern right whales, where they they're like playful creatures and they play with like kelp and they like rub it around their back and things like that. So like there are certain, like if you know how to read behavior, or like if you like do a little bit of research, you could see that that it's just so much more than just going and seeing a whale. Like there's just so much more to it, or more than going and seeing a whale shark. Like there's a lot more to experience if you have any other like really cool wildlife
honestly, I've been lucky enough to have quite a few like encounters with different groups of animals, different animals. Like whale sharks, I'll never get tired of seeing. I've seen 101 whale sharks, but I'll never get tired of seeing them. They're beautiful, and
such
sometimes.
a flex though.
I mean, I've been very lucky, and it's always special. Whenever you see those spots come out of the blue, it's always incredibly special. And we've had encounters with like curious babies and things like that, but like as beautiful and adorable as whale sharks are, like, I love them, but there's nothing up there. They're just like mouths they just look around for plankton. They're just looking through the oceans for plankton. But when you have encounters with like really intelligent, like whale sharks are sentient, but like really intelligent, you can see the thought process behind their eyes. And I always come back to things like elephants and whales, which you can see when they're looking at you. You can see like you're looking at them and they're looking back at you. When a whale shark looks at you, like it can see there's something there, but it's like, I can't eat that, so I'm just going to keep, it's not plankton, like, I'll keep going. So the other one, other than the grey whales I talk about, is probably the sperm whales. Being in the water with sperm whales is, yeah, it's unlike anything else. The largest tooth predator in the world, and the way they socialize with each other is incredible, and like being able to see that is very rare. But having them socialize, like having an interaction with them, with humans, is like even more rare than that. I was incredibly lucky. I think the first time I got in the water with sperm whales, the pod was kind of interacting with each other. Mums and babies were interacting, and then I had interaction with an adolescent. It wasn't a baby, but it was an adolescent, where she kind of, you know, I was swimming alongside her, and then suddenly she just flips in front of me, just goes vertical in the water, like her head is down, upside down in the water, just like, and you can see like they're clicking, you can hear the clicks, they're clicking at you, trying to figure out like what you are, and you can feel it, like they're only adolescents as well, they're not even fully grown. You could feel like the click like reverberate in your body, and it's kind of just like looking at me like, it's like you could see, like, you know when a dog like turns his head to figure out like what's going on, and it's like turning his head, but this is an animal that's like, it's not even fully grown, but it's probably like 4 times the size of me, and it's like vertical in the water with me, and I'm just like, I was filming it, and I was like just put the camera down, I was like, just like mesmerized for a minute. I forgot that I was holding my breath breathing, and I was just like, wow. That was like, yeah, that's a top 3 moment ever. It has to be like, having that kind of special interaction with something that like that was just mind blowing. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. Just to reiterate though, for everybody listening as well, like all of these were done under like ethical, under code of conduct in areas that it was legal to swim with whales, not something that we condone to do in Sri Lanka, where it is currently illegal.
But getting to that topic, like what do you think Sri Lanka can learn from? I mean, you've traveled around the world and seen so much of wildlife and experienced so much of close encounters with animals, and also like photographed them, and also worked in like the ecotourism industry as well. What can Sri Lanka learn from all of this? And maybe you've dived here or not, or like experienced much of Sri Lanka. But
I think I've only dived here a couple of times, and I haven't. The last time I was here, this industry for whale watching and whale swims didn't exist. Even like I didn't know back then that we have these amazing whales in Sri Lanka. But I think there's a lot to learn, especially when the industry here is so new, from other countries, especially countries where it's not done properly, and you can see the impact that it has on the wildlife. So the whale sharks in the Maldives is a great example. The sperm whales in Mauritius is another great example of how it can be done really poorly and have a massive impact on the whales. Whales swims in Mauritius are illegal, but over the last maybe 5-6 years they've started to become more popular, especially with Instagram influencers going and showcasing and stuff like that. And the main problem is that it's not enforced, right? They don't enforce it anymore. There was a period of time where they enforced it and you get a massive fine, so it put people off. There's no enforcement now, which is a huge issue. And you see Mauritius has one of the only resident populations of sperm whales in the entire world. So the mums and the babies, they live there year round, the males just come and go. That means that if you have a boat and you have a hydrophone, you can go every day and probably find these whales. Unless they're in the deep feeding, they're going to be around the island somewhere, which means that they just get hammered day in, day out by tourists trying to get in with these animals, which for an animal so sentient and also very like sensitive as well. Like we're talking about like parental groups. This is mums with their babies that they spend a lot of time socializing, and when people come in and are jumping in with boats and the boats don't know what they're doing, so they're like driving over the top of whales or coming up behind them, which is invoking like a predator reaction in the whales. It just stresses them out, and they can only dive down for so long before they have to come back. So all you have to do is wait 15-20 minutes, see, oh, they're over there now, and then you can go and harass them over there. And just with a little bit of enforcement, you can fix the situation. Like, it doesn't have to be illegal. There are ways that people, like countries have been doing legalized whale swims across the world for 20 plus years now, probably. And it just takes like a little bit of copying what they, in places like Tonga or Valu, like they're doing there, put those sanctions and like those regulations in place, and everybody wins. Like the tourist economy is making like legit money, and the price is generally higher because you can take less people. So the tour operators are making more money. The government is making money because people aren't just taking it in cash in hand, so they're actually paying tax. And for me, particularly, the whales are winning because they're just not getting harassed and like constantly smashed by people all the time. So I think there's a lot that can be learned. If you want to go down the route of keeping it illegal, that's fair. That's the country's right to do that, but you have to enforce it. If it's not enforced, then it doesn't really make a
still
difference,
happens.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think in Sri Lanka
Yeah.
we have a lot of problems with enforcement also
Yeah.
because of like resources and like the also a lot of like more complex issues when it comes to sort of communities. But also just to understand a little bit more, like when you're doing this sort of ecotourism and sort of reef tourism aspects as well, like do you see any other common mistakes that countries or institutions or NGOs or tour operators make when they're having these sort of wildlife encounters as opposed to just maybe getting too close or touching the animals?
I would say too many people is also a big thing. So in a lot of places, there'll be regulations around how many people can be on a boat, however many boats can be around a specific animal. So like around a whale shark, I think in the Maldives it's like 20 or 30 people, no more than 20 or 30 people, but we all the time see 100 plus people around a small shark. Like that is another big one. Too many people is a big issue, which, there's always competition between tour operators, which it just happens. So everyone is trying to undercut the other person on price, and you make that up by taking more people, right, to make their profit. Whereas if you maybe have more regulations for the number of max people, then everyone has to up their price, and so the competition still exists, just in a higher bracket, right?
Or if you focus on giving a better quality experience,
Yeah, exactly.
Then you
you can justify the charge as well.
services,
Yeah, exactly.
things like that.
As opposed to kind of doing this cheap tourism, which is just get on the boat, we'll take you there, we'll drop you there, we'll take you back kind of thing. Actually add some value to people and give them information and make their day on the water better. Like I've had so many people go to the Maldives, they want to see a whale shark. They see a whale shark for the first time, and they say they never want to go back there again because the encounter is terrible because of how many people there are. They're getting kicked in the face, water is going in the snorkel. Like they see this beautiful shark. We only get adolescents there, so between kind of 4 and 10 meters. It's a small shark. You see something like that with like 150 people around it, you can barely see the shark anymore. So it's not a pleasant experience for people, and it's definitely not a pleasant experience for the shark or the animal either.
Also, to digress a little bit now from the sort of tourism, you also do some work with coral restoration around the world. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do and sort of how it builds up into the larger aim of your conservation work?
So I work as an ambassador for the Sheba Hope Grows Coral Restoration Initiative around the world. So they started doing coral restoration kind of 20-ish years ago, just checking off camera. And they actually constructed the world's largest restored coral reef in Indonesia, just off of South Sulawesi. It's called Hope Reef, and the construction is actually in the shape of the letter Hope. And it's so big that you can see it from space, from satellites, right? And they figured out this incredible methodology for restoring reefs at scale as well. So what they've done since then is kind of spread that knowledge across the world so that NGOs across the world can replicate it and do it at scale in their own region. So I work as an ambassador with them, kind of sharing their message, and then when they go across the world doing these builds, doing these teaching events, I go with them and kind of document it. And during these events, they're kind of going to another country, partnering with an NGO that fits their kind of ethics in that area, teaching them how to do this restoration. They do a build, so it may be kind of 200, 300 of these reef stars, we call them, which is these structures that we put in the water. And they're teaching the local community how, and that NGO specifically, how to do it, so that when they leave, they can then teach other people in their region and community how to do it. And it's incredible. I'd heard of coral restoration before this, but my experience of it had only been in the Maldives and resorts where it was coral restoration, but it was just for tourists really. They were kind of making a coral garden, which is fine, but it's not contributing to the reef. You're growing more coral, which is good in its own right, where you're not actually going to restore reefs. Whereas this methodology it's unlike anything else I've seen before. And when you see it in practice and what it looks like on day one versus like year 3, the change is incredible. And I like from a scientist's point of view, I understood the methodology. I'm like, yeah, it can work. But it wasn't until I went to Hope Reef in Indonesia and I looked at what I thought was just a coral reef. It was in fact a restored coral reef with like these bars underneath, but by year 4 or 5 there, like you can't see it, just looks like a natural reef. All you see is more coral than I've ever seen before, more fish species than I've ever seen before, and you don't see this metal frame anymore because at that point it's just overrun by coral, and it's, well, for all intents and purposes, is just a natural reef. That's when I was like, this is really like incredible, and the more we can do this around the world in suitable habitats, the better it is. So yeah, I'm really lucky to be able to go and document that.
And is it the same coral species or different species?
So they try and you need to harvest kind of corals from nearby, from a healthy reef. Yeah. It tends to work with really hardy species like acroporas and montes and stuff like that. It depends region by region. So like we were in Colombia recently, where one of the most common coral species they get there is fire coral. So it's not really great for us to work with, but it is what's naturally occurring there, and we can't be too selective in like which one. We do have to take like a nice array, otherwise you get like a mono reef basically. But generally acros, montes and Procellopora is what works best.
But I'm also assuming there would be a lot of natural settlement that comes in once
that
the
also
initial
happens,
sort of restoration.
Yeah, so we
that should
did
help with the
so like we did one in the Dominican Republic where we put these reef stars in naked. They didn't attach anything to them, and it's an area where they get spawning quite a lot, so their hope is that there'll be natural recruitment. And since we put those in, they've had a spawning event and they've had like attachments to it. So
there's also that study that was done recently, right, where you play the sound of the healthy reefs, and that sound
it
of
helps
the healthy reefs
them,
actually helps with recruitment. So something you could try.
Yeah, it's incredible, like how easily a reef can get destroyed, but also like how easily it can come back if you give it the right tools and like just a little bit of a nudge.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
No, I think I've dissected enough.
No, wait, I had a question. Okay, wait, I'm blanking, yes. We spoke about the coral restoration. From the photography that I think you've been, I don't know, you've been a photographer how many years now?
I think I started properly in like 2022, so 3.5 years now.
Okay, so in that time span, like what changes have you seen in like the animals you take or the reefs that you've gone to? Like, do you see it being restored, or do you see some kind of destruction, or like?
That's a good question. A little bit of both, to be fair. When I first went to the Maldives in 2018, which is really my first experience in the water, like, I'm from London, so I never really went to the beach, never went swimming. My only experience was here when I was younger, and like my dad wouldn't let me go past like knee height because he's scared of the water. The reefs were pretty healthy. There were areas that were degraded from construction, sometimes from bleaching and things like that. That was in 2018. When I went back almost a year later in 2019, some of those reefs had been completely bleached from bleaching events. Like what I thought was pristine reefs the year before, completely like decimated, like, and nothing was coming back at that point. And that was just a 1 year difference. And one of the things we do there when we see whale sharks is we also collect environmental data. So the first show I went, we were collecting like temperature samples. It was averaging about 28. A year later, we were averaging pretty much bang on 29. So a 1 degree change in just like 1 year,
has destroyed
which is unbelievable. Like, that's not sustainable in any way. Like, no coral reef is going to survive that if we keep going like that. Like, it's been 6 years since then. So if we're at 34 now, like, there's no wonder that there's so many bleaching events. So yeah, unfortunately, you know, we see these events more, but also we do see a lot more like resurrection of places as well. Places that 1 month are completely white and they look like they're lost forever. Give it a little bit of time, the water temperature comes down and they're completely back to normal again. And with the help of kind of restoration projects and things like that, we've seen some really good areas
and
where
MPAs.
Yeah, MPAs if you have an MPA that is actually protected on paper and in practice as well, that is like the golden ticket, because that's where you see real areas where life comes back, and you can see the like massive difference just in the same strip between this area that's protected and this area that isn't protected, and how much more life there is here. Eventually it spills over, but like at the start, how much more life there is here to here is just such a stark difference.
So sort of thinking of the Indian Ocean region, and maybe even more specifically like Sri Lanka, what do you like? What can you envision like reef-based tourism or marine ecotourism in this region looking like maybe in 5-10 years in the future, or even closer? Like,
yeah, well, sustainable. I hope it's, you know, it's good livelihood for locals as well as being ethical and healthy for the wildlife as well. I think it makes, you know, overfishing and fishing is such a massive issue these days, especially in a place like Sri Lanka where fishing is like the lifeblood of most of the communities, right? But even here, they feel the impact of there being less and less fish, and I think the same thing that's happened in a lot of other places around the world, which is fishermen kind of changing over to sustainable tourism. It's almost a win-win, because there's no one better out there at spotting wildlife than a fisherman. Like, their eyes are the best I've ever seen anywhere. Like, they understand wildlife behavior really well as well, because they spend so much time on the water. And
they
it's
know
just
the ocean.
yeah,
so.
exactly.
Yeah, they know the
they know when to launch, how to drive the boat.
how to read the like weather, how
Yeah.
to like
Exactly.
see
They know,
waves, the whole
and
thing.
better than anyone. Like, these guys have been doing it since they were children, right? So it just makes sense to incorporate them into ecotourism. It just takes like a little bit of education in terms of teaching them on how to be more ethical, maybe, or how, you know, if you're approaching a whale, don't go behind it, come from the side or like way in front of it, and then turn the motor off, kind of thing. But with like kind of minimal training, we can easily transition so much into an ethical tourism point of view, and then they have kind of an ongoing income that they're getting, and there's always going to be tourism that comes in, especially in a country like this where there's so much, it's so rich in life, both on land and in the water as well. And so, yeah, I hope
We have potential.
we have, there's so much potential.
Yeah, I think all of it again just comes down to like having everybody just see like the wildlife around that they have as like an asset and not like a liability, because I guess like what happens right now is that even if they want to be ethical and they won't follow the rules and they care about the animal, there's always like 10 other guys that will like willingly break the rules, and then they benefit from it, right? Because like they either get paid
That's
higher
it,
prices or like, and because there is no sort of fine or like enforcement, then really
there's no
the value
punishment
in
for it.
following the rules for even the person that wants to be ethical sort of disappears, and then that's sort of like a negative feedback loop that just keeps.
Yeah, for sure. I think
getting worse
it's
and
not
worse.
about exploiting the wildlife and the natural resources. It's about working with it, and
Yeah.
the more we let it grow, the more like it can impact us and give us more like,
And
revenue
benefit
as well.
us,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So it does need like a community approach to it, I guess, and if that means people kind of, you know, telling on each other when someone is breaking the rules, I think it's only for the betterment of the community and for the industry as well.
I think we should wrap up. I think this is a very, very interesting podcast, at least.
So far. I guess to wrap up, one question that we can ask, something that we do is that we always like, you know, leave like a message for our listeners. So I guess our question would be for the people that are listening, especially maybe the younger people who have like a mix of different passions like yourself, like, you know, with photography, with tourism, with like science. How do you think they can combine these different passions, you know, to contribute something towards nature or marine conservation or whatever it is that their interests are?
I think if you're passionate about something like that, like there's no perfect time to start. It's just now. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have the right camera, or I don't have the right whatever. Like there's no perfect time. It's just use whatever you have now. Everyone has a phone with a camera. Like you could just start with that, or a little action camera like a GoPro or something like that. And if you're passionate about like a story or a specific cause, just go out and tell it. Like go and work for it. And it doesn't have to be somewhere far afield. There's causes and stories nearby to you. Everyone thinks, oh, you have to go. Like I'm from the UK, so people think there's nothing cool in the UK. It's like we have such amazing wildlife, such amazing ocean wildlife as well. You could just go and help out your local NGOs, local charities. I guarantee they need all hands on deck. They need as much help as possible. So get out and do whatever you can to help the oceans and nature in general, because it needs it now more than ever.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great message.
Yeah.
For us to.
And I think this whole episode was so interesting because it's coming from a personal experience. Like, you've experienced so much, even like the connections that you had with animals. So the story that you're saying is so much more personal, and it makes so much more like sense. I don't know, at least for me it was. And I hope the audience also feels the same way.
Thank you, I'm glad.
But yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of value in what you shared, so we hope there's a lot. And also,
And you learn something from it.
Yeah, and also thank you to everybody for joining and listening to us. And
we'll see you in the next one. This podcast is a Creator Cast production.